Making headlines tonight, the state of emergency is extended for 2 months, but not the curfew. Barbados records a rise in unemployment. The deadline for filing of income tax has been extended. And coming up in sports, the ICC considers legalizing some forms of ball tampering in light of COVID-19.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC Newsnight, starting now.
I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. In a clear sign that the COVID-19 pandemic is expected to remain a public health threat for at least the next 2 months, Parliament this morning passed a resolution to extend the public health emergency in Barbados until June 30th. The public health emergency was initially set to expire on April 27th. Well, to bring us further details on this story and what it means is Lisa Broom. Lisa, good evening.
Good evening, Shane. Thanks. And that announcement was made by Acting Prime Minister and Leader of Government Business in the Lower House, Santia Bradshaw, during a brief speech in Parliament. And she says government will be updating the country on the next course of action.
We hope that shortly we will review at the end of the last directive number 3 that has been issued, that we will be in a position in a couple of days to be able to do a full assessment of where we are, and on the advice of public health officials, be in a position to speak to the country again with respect to that directive or any future directives that may become necessary. But again, we ask Barbadians to be mindful that the imposition of a number of these measures are not to create any additional stress or any additional burden on them.
Opposition leader Bishop Joseph Atherley supported the move as he called for a fitting post-COVID gesture for frontline workers.
The notion of hand clapping is appreciated, but as a token gesture, and I believe that when we get past this, a more tangible way always must be found to express the appreciation of this country for what these people have done for us, whether it is a one-off financial gift, if the country can afford it, and if the country can't afford it, maybe a token of appreciation in kind, maybe a period of time off from work.
And in his contribution, Health Minister Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic updated the nation on the current COVID-19 situation.
I'm happy to report that we were able to conduct 100 tests yesterday. That's the first time we've reached that figure, and it will continue to climb. And I'm also happy to report, as a result of those tests, well, not happy to report, but I should report that one person tested positive. And when I say happy, it is only because one out of 100 gives us an idea that we are on the right track and that there's hope, that there's promise.
Well, Shane, the MPs also voted to give $2 million to the Health Ministry. That money will be used to purchase reagents as well as swabs and other materials for the Best dos Santos Public Health Lab. And Minister Bostic says this will help efforts to ramp up testing for the coronavirus.
The Prime Minister, the Honourable Mayor Motley, would have given directions to me and to the Ministry to be able to do or provide for at least 100,000 tests. And this is thinking ahead, not necessarily for right now, but obviously this thing is likely to be with us for some time, and so we must be in a position to be able to do the level of testing that will give us the comfort for some level of economic and other activities to be able to take place going down the road.
Now, Shane, when the public health emergency extension was announced, it left some Barbadians confused, and many people seem to think it meant the curfew was extended as well. In fact, quite a few of them called the CBC seeking an explanation. And that clarification has come from Attorney General Dale Marshall.
Today, the Parliament of Barbados, by a majority resolution, and in fact by unanimous support in the House of Assembly, agreed to extend the state of emergency in Barbados until the 30th of June. Under the Emergency Management Act, the state of emergency is a two-stage process. The first stage is that the Governor General will declare state of emergency, and that lasts for 30 days. If it has to go beyond 30 days, then the House of Assembly has to resolve that it should be extended. Now, everyone will realize that the current curfew directive lasts until the 3rd of May. And this therefore means that in order for the curfew directive to be valid after the 27th of April, we needed to go to Parliament and extend it for a period beyond that. Now, the curfew directive that exists presently will still come to an end on the 3rd of May. If the government determines, based on the public health advice, that we need to extend that curfew or put different restrictive arrangements in place, that will be done, but those decisions have not yet been taken. What we have decided, though, is that the state of emergency will extend until the 30th of June, and that is consistent with exactly what we're dealing with. COVID is not going to go anywhere by the 30th of June. So for as long as we have this fight in our hands, it is still going to be a state of emergency. But throughout that period, the government is going to employ different tools, different restrictive measures from time to time. So there appears to be some alarm in the minds of the Barbadian public, and they seem to feel that the curfew has now been extended until the 30th of June. That is absolutely not the case. All that we've done is to say that until the 30th of June, we consider that Barbados is in a state of emergency to deal with COVID. And between now and the 30th of June, we will employ such measures as we feel are important and necessary in order to be able to achieve the results that we want. But under no circumstances are Barbadians to imply or infer that we have, by this action, extended the curfew period to any time beyond the 3rd of May.
So Shane, those are the latest developments, and of course we'll continue to keep the public informed. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Well, there's been a sharp increase in the level of unemployment in Barbados due to the COVID-19 crisis. Word of this from Minister in the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Investment, Marcia Cattle.
The number of new claims that we've seen are about 18% of the workforce. Now, we don't have a new quarterly labor force survey yet, because among other things, this has also constrained a bit our capacity to do household surveys. But if you take those numbers together, the fact that we were at 10%, we have up to 18% new claims without doing any arithmetic, it suggests that it is a sharp increase. I mean, it is a tremendous increase in unemployment.
Minister Cattle was speaking during a webinar hosted by the Inter-American Development Bank to facilitate analysis and discussion on policy recommendations to bring relief and maintain economic stability in Barbados, the Caribbean, and Latin America. She says government has placed emphasis at this time on training.
We have launched a national training initiative, and we had it kind of framed in a particular way, as in what sectors will we start with, and that was pre-pandemic. So what we've done is we've set the national training initiative to essentially respond very quickly to people who will be leaving the tourism sector, not just to help them improve their skills in that sector, but to start looking at how might they be able to move into different areas of work. And so that the training initiative would respond very quickly and very specifically to what those needs are. Now, yes, we see this as a temporary shock, and it's important to emphasize that.
The IDB has labeled the crisis the worst external shock for the region and has told Barbados and the Caribbean to brace for a fall in gross domestic product before the recovery from COVID-19. IDB Regional Economic Advisor David Rosenblatt outlined what the bank would like to see happen in the region.
Just thinking out loud a little bit, first of all, healthy Caribbean people is what we want to see. Secondly, we want to see enough businesses surviving to be able to bring the unemployed back to work and financial systems strong enough to support the recovery. Third, we would need a fiscal plan to bring debt to GDP levels back in alignment.
Mr. Rosenblatt wants countries to take advantage of the creative opportunities to emerge following the crisis.
Some examples include maybe stronger linkages between agriculture sectors and tourism in our countries. Another might be strengthened trade linkages within CARICOM. Another might be, greater opportunities for health tourism and business continuity type of tourism, off-site shops for big companies globally based in lovely Caribbean destinations. Also, pushing ahead on the digitization of government, which we've seen how important that can be when we have this type of shutdown.
The 15th session of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD 15, Ministerial Conference has been postponed due to the current global circumstances of COVID-19. That event was originally scheduled to be held here in Barbados from the 18th to the 23rd of October this year. However, UNCTAD's Secretary General Office issued a statement explaining the decision was reached after consultations with Barbados Prime Minister Mia Motley. It adds consultations will be ongoing with the host country and the Trade and Development Board to identify a feasible time frame for the conference. Industries driven by data and technology are the way to go for Barbados and the Caribbean post-COVID-19. Barbados' permanent representative to the Organization of American States, Ambassador Noel Lynch, sees cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, privacy, and preservation of data as potential areas to tap into. He told a town hall forum organized by the Authentic Caribbean Foundation, training must start with the youth and the unemployed.
People who might possibly be displaced during this period is where we need to concentrate our efforts. How do we create a basis for retraining these people as quickly as possible to be able to do some of the things that they wouldn't normally do or wouldn't traditionally have done? And I believe that this is more than ever an opportunity for us to create a kind of Marshall Plan, for example, that happened in the United States after the war, a kind of New Deal. And I think that the Caribbean Development Bank and some of the other entities, these international financial institutions that we so much depend on, they should be at the center of creating some of these real new areas that we can deal with.
Barbados has played a significant role in facilitating an historic agreement among member states of the United Nations. This as Barbados' permanent representative to the UN, Ambassador Elizabeth Thompson, along with her Latvian counterpart, co-facilitated the process to deliver the outcome document on financing for development, FFD, for 2020 to 2021. This agreement marks the first time in the UN's 75-year history intergovernmental negotiations were conducted and completed virtually through online platforms and emails. The outcome document was announced at a UN meeting yesterday and focuses on the serious global impacts and threats caused by COVID-19. Commenting on the development, Ambassador Thompson described the agreement as a success for multilateralism and notes Barbados and other small states have important roles to play in the UN system. Well, at least one retailer has given the surname shopping system a nod of approval. Director of Eddie's Trading, Angela Edwards, says the measure, which was introduced last week in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, has been working well.
In my opinion, this is the best system. It so far has been working for us. And right now, our customer, they're getting used to coming in, it's their day, and we have been having no problems at all. And even for the seniors on Sunday, when it was the seniors' day, they came in, they shopped, and I allow one person with a senior that couldn't help themselves, and we had no problems.
Well, based on current shopping trends, Mrs. Edwards revealed customers have been heeding the message to purchase essential items at this time.
Things for baking, flour, sugar, the essentials. And, for the ladies, for their essential and their personal stuff. That's the most thing that and fruits and vegetables.
With concerns worldwide about a rise in domestic violence during national shutdowns, several local agencies have been stepping up to offer support. Our Sharika Griffith spoke with some of them to find out what their experience has been during the COVID-19 pandemic.
The Business and Professional Women's Club has for the past 20 years provided a safe house for abused women and their children. However, since the onset of COVID-19 and given the shelter's limited capacity, they've been forced to restrict the intake to those most in need, while advising others to seek another safe space.
We're asking those individuals if they can find another means of housing for the time being, but like I said, if it is a case where it meets the criteria as a high risk, then we will make all arrangements to ensure that that person is safe.
While the shelter has not seen a dramatic rise in the number of abuse victims seeking refuge, it has noted an increase in the number of women seeking assistance because they've been evicted from their homes.
What we have been telling those persons is, and what we have been directing them to and supporting them in some instances, is channeling them through to the welfare department and other agencies that can better equip them for the circumstances that they're in.
The Barbados Association of Muslim Ladies is another entity aiding members of its community during this difficult time. Founder Farhana Balbulia says the organization, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary, has launched a crisis hotline managed by qualified female Muslim counselors, and you don't have to be Muslim to get help.
The counselors have agreed that if anyone calls the hotline with assistance, they will not be turned away.
However, she says in an effort to ensure no one is left behind, it was important to recognize the cultural and religious dynamics for Muslim women.
To be sensitive towards those needs, we would have ensured that the counselors that we pick were fluent in a language called Gujarati. As you know, some of the Muslim community, within the Muslim community, some of the women's first language may not be English. It may be Gujarati because they are of Indian descent. Or women may feel more comfortable conversing in that language as opposed to English. So in that way, we ensured that we were sensitive to those particular needs.
Barbadian men have also been getting support during this pandemic through the Men's Empowerment Network support. President Fabian Sargent says one of the major challenges facing men at the moment is the inability to see their children.
We're reaching out to mothers out there who would have these children. I know some of the excuses are that you don't want to be in the same space or whatever the case is. You can use the same medium, use Zoom, use WhatsApp, video. At least let that child know, or let that father know that the child is safe.
With the COVID-19 fallout costing some men their jobs, he's also stressing there's more to child support than financial maintenance. And while noting that many challenges men face stem from an inability to process their emotions, he's encouraging them to use this time to work on this deficit and improve themselves. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Thanks, Sharika. Well, still to come, Jamaican businesses moving online to continue operations during the COVID-19 pandemic, but not all of them can make the transition. Before we get to that, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Maintain at least a 6 feet distance between yourself and anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Cooperators General Insurance, encouraging you to stay home and stay safe.
Checking in with our regional neighbors now, several business operations in Jamaica have moved online in a bid to keep customers and secure profits during the COVID-19 pandemic. But others, like attractions, are struggling. We hear more in this CVM TV report.
On a normal day, these attractions would be crowded with visitors, but we are no longer living in normal times. The COVID-19 pandemic has crippled businesses like these in Portland, and operators are waiting patiently for the crisis to pass. For the Alligator Head Foundation, activities such as snorkeling and paddle boarding are on pause.
We are now embracing a new normal, and that new normal for us means that pretty much as of March 18th, like a lot of the other places on the island, those options have not been available.
Weekends and holidays are usually for a beach getaway. Operators of popular beaches in Portland, such as the Blue Lagoon, Frenchman's Cove, Long Bay Beach, and Boston Beach, would be anticipating the usual turnout of locals and tourists. But local borders have been closed, and the social distancing protocol prevents large gatherings.
It has stopped business totally. Since the 11th of March, we have closed the gates. So absolutely no business is happening here.
For craft vendors, it's a similar plight. The anticipated arrival of tourists would be a boost to their business, but there is no one to sell to, and there is uncertainty over when the tourists will return.
From the start of the COVID-19, it has been a devastating hit, like a knockout, drastic cut-off in business. Yeah, as you can see, it's just desolation.
There's mixed reaction among Bahamian pastors as churches could be added to the list of entities being allowed to open in May. The government intends to reopen a number of establishments in order to jumpstart the country's economy.
Mixed emotions expressed by pastors on the heels of the announcement of the possibility of churches being allowed to reopen despite being closed back in March to avoid further spread of the coronavirus.
A lot depends upon, the safety of reopening.
I never saw the reason why churches had to close when other businesses were open.
The Christian Council presented a proposal to government of the same, but with a few restrictions. Churches would need to place sanitization stations at all entrances, limiting the number of persons attending each service to 25 to 30% of the normal congregation. Bishop Samuel Cornish, founder and head pastor of Change Ministries International, says he's all for the move.
We could have done the same exact thing that the grocery stores are doing, that the banks are doing, and every other business was doing. Do multiple services with proper social distancing and with proper sanitization. So that was my standpoint then. It's still my standpoint now.
While head pastor of Bahamas Faith Ministries, Pastor Dave Burrows, insisted that safety comes first.